Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to round 22 of season 2 of our F125 My Team career mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here in Las Vegas. 3 races to go of the campaign. If you missed out on the last video that went live from Brazil, I would highly recommend going back and checking out, but it continues to heat up at the top of the table. George Russell now, his gap at the top of the championship down to just 32 points. Of course, if you guys remember last season, Charles Leclerc fought from behind to win the World Championship. It looks like Ferrari are trying to stick to that script once again. Lando Norris only a further 10 points behind his teammate at the moment, so there are still 3 drivers with a shot at the championship by the end of the year. Our drivers, currently Isaac Hadjar in P9, Yuki Tsunoda down in P11, just 1 point behind Alex Albon, and my ultimate goal of trying to get both drivers into the top 10 by the end of the year. Constructors-wise, everybody, to be honest, is looking pretty much guaranteed, apart from Haas could jump Alpine by the end of the year as well. They've been on a good run of form in recent races there, but yeah, 3 races to go of the season. It feels like it's gone by rather quickly, season 2 of this career mode, but a massive thank you to everybody for the continued support as well. It doesn't look like we're going to get any rule changes ready for season 3, which is making me slightly nervous because there's basically no upgrades that I can do at the moment, which is a little bit of a pain. To be completely honest, I'm slowly going through, I'm slowly ticking off more and more kind of durability upgrades that I can. As you can see, I've constantly got 2 upgrades working on all of our facilities as well there, so it is apparently something that EA are looking into, but yeah, at the moment, obviously all of the major upgrades hidden behind kind of this facility upgrade, so we're kind of a bit screwed at the moment on all departments apart from durability, which is a little bit of a pain. I can still do a few of those, but I want to try and save up some of the R&D for ready when I can actually get more upgrades onto the car as well. But that being said, Vegas is usually an interesting race inside F125. As always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below. And yeah, let's just get on with it, I guess.
Stand by to see cars at more than 210 miles an hour blasting their way down the strip. F1 has taken over. It's F1 Fever, Las Vegas.
Well, we are right on the cusp of the drop zone then as we head back out onto the circuit. Both myself and Isaac Hadjar will want to look for improvements here. There's Alex Albon again in that Williams. He did the same thing in Brazil. Really kind of struggled in Q1 and then still was able to put himself into Q3 by the end of the session. But yeah, Vegas, though, a really, really good fun circuit to try and get laps hooked up together. And now, obviously, we are on the soft compound tyre. There should be a lot more time to find there, as you can see. Able to throw the car over the curbing through turn 1. Turn 2 should also be completely flat out. And there we go, immediately. Almost half a second discovered through those first couple of corners. Hadjar moves himself up in towards safety. And now Alex Albon right on the cusp of the drop zone. So could we knock out my tie rival here? That would be very, very useful as we get towards the end of qualifying. Albon is out of it. In fact, yeah, no, Albon's improved. That's a bit of a shame. For us, anyway. Happy, I'm sure, for him. As, oh, no! It's either going to be myself or Isaac Hadjar out in Q1. And at the moment, with an 8/10 improvement, I don't fancy my teammates' chances. 9/10 of a second up then by the time we get down in towards one of the biggest braking zones of the lap. Slam on the anchors at the 100-meter board, and then it's all about trying to get the power down on the exit. Hopefully I haven't gone too early with my ERS there, as this should be my first sub-90 second lap time of the weekend. Up towards the line, we go P7. There we go, Carlos Sainz fastest by 4/10 of a second in Q1. But Lando Norris there just ahead of George Russell. Mercedes, are they back in the fight this weekend there? Russell quicker than Charles Leclerc. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, great effort by him to go inside your top 10. But disappointment for Isaac Hadjar once again out in Q1. Paul Aaron, Franco Colapinto, that's a big shock in the Williams with Jack Crawford there. Not so surprising to see both Saubers out. With a bit of luck then, we can try and make it into Q3 on just a single run here in Q2. Not entirely optimistic it'll happen, but you don't know if you don't try then. I've given myself enough of a buffer that we can go back out again, or if we need to, as that was a lot of curb through turn 1 there. Luckily, we certainly didn't gain anything from it. Car bobbled around just a little bit, as we try and keep it completely flat out through turn 2. A little bit of a ragged start to the lap, but we'll wait and see whether we can try and find some composure there. Braking at the 100-meter board up in towards the top of the circuit. Nice and tidy on that throttle. And 6/10 up immediately then on Jack Doohan. This corner so difficult to try and get it stopped for, but we do throw the car through the curbing very nicely. Where they've updated the ride heights on this game, you can attack the curbs a bit more in quite a lot of places around a circuit like this as well. There's almost 200 miles an hour through the S-bends towards the end of Sector 2. Don't run too wide on the exit. So we just kept it out of the wall that time around, and then used plenty of your battery as we make our way down in towards Sector 3 then. We are 9/10 up on Jack Doohan at the moment. That hasn't been a bad lap time set by the Australian either. So I think the circuit is just ramping up here towards the end of Q2. There's almost 220 miles an hour. Spot the braking at the 100-meter board. Get the car nicely dialed in again. A little bit of bouncing about there, but we do very well to get back on the loud pedal nice and evenly on the exit of the corner. Make sure we don't run out of battery on the run back towards the line. We will just about stay in charge. 29.0. We go P5. Well, there we go then. By the end of Q2, Charles Leclerc fastest, 4/10 clear of Pierre Gasly. But yeah, George Russell, he might actually be in the fight this weekend. Ferrari, both their drivers struggling to kind of get the laps hooked up. But great news for us, Alex Albon hasn't made it into Q3. Great news for Haas as well, because Kimi Antonelli has made it through. So both Aston Martins, both Alpines, Pepe Marti and Alex Albon are all out there. But I think if we could get into the 28s in Q3, no matter where that puts us, I'll be pretty happy. But like I said, if we can just set a 1:28 lap time here, I'll be very happy no matter where I end up by the end of qualifying. Again, I'm going to try and go out a little bit earlier in the session, but if we can get through on one run, I'm going to just settle with it. I think if we want to be able to challenge those big four teams, it's going to be very difficult to do so. But let's try and go for one more lap of anger then here in Vegas. Brake at the 100-meter board down for turn 1. That's the line I wanted through that first corner. Use the curb to kind of throw the car in, but don't scrub off too much speed there, as again, use a little bit of battery on the exit. Almost feels like the carousel at the Nürburgring there, slightly cambered, and you really just want to throw the car really early on the loud pedal to make sure you get the run off the turn. Slight nudge of the barrier through the first part there, and you can see we are even with Esteban Ocon then by the end of Sector 1. Plenty of curb through there, and the second part. Got the car fully wedged over the curb that time round, as again, this one really horrible to try and get it nailed there, because you want to try and get over the curb, but if you do it too well, you end up in the inside wall, and that's really not what anybody wants at the moment then. Nice and smooth line of least resistance down in towards this corner. That horrible high commitment, high stakes, and you can see we're still basically even with Esteban Ocon at the moment, and he's done a 28.5, so I'll be very happy if we're still with him by the end of Sector 3 there. I am running slightly more downforce to hopefully give ourselves a fighting chance during the wet period early on in the GP. Again, down at the 100-meter board there, get the car slowed down nice and tidy on the pickup on the exit. Just avoid the walls as best as we can. Carry the speed back up towards the start-finish line. I'm pretty happy with the lap time. Hopefully, it's going to show 28.6. We go P8. Quicker than Oscar Piastri. Less than a tenth away from Ocon. We were almost identical all the way round. Well, there we are. Carlos Sainz by just 0.03 of a second will out-qualify his former teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, after struggling through a lot of the session there, great lap in Q3 to line up on the second row just alongside Charles Leclerc. I hyped up Mercedes. I thought they looked quick, but as everybody else got quicker, they just never managed to improve. Very happy with P8, 1.5 seconds quicker than Kimi Antonelli. Hopefully, we're going to be able to keep up with the big boys.
We might be in the middle of the desert here, but it does still rain in this part of the world. It's raining right now. How is that going to affect things down the world-famous strip at the Las Vegas Grand Prix?
So a lap of Las Vegas comprises 3.8 miles and 3 straights, but our drivers won't be at top speed down them today as it's very wet out there. It does rain in the desert, sometimes, and now it poses a question of bravery and of strategy. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. It's Carlos Sainz in pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Esteban Ocon, and Gasly, Russell, Tsunoda, Piastri, and Kimi Antonelli, Albon, Lawson, Jack Doohan, and Behrman, Pepe Marti, Stroll, Isaac Hadjar, and Paul Aaron, Colapinto, Crawford, Bortoletto, and Nico Hulkenberg rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Well, here we are then down on the grid, ready for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and a rare Alex Jakes and David Croft opening commentary. Clearly, Crofty didn't record his line for if you get a wet race here in Las Vegas, but it is only meant to rain throughout the first half of the Grand Prix. And I mean, if this was IRL, I'm sure it would be utter carnage down in towards turn 1. 25 laps ahead of us, though. I'm really intrigued to see what is going to happen today. That rain will be the defining factor, I'm sure, this afternoon. It might even decide a world championship. 5 red lights are on. It's lights out, and away we go there, off to a fairly tidy getaway down towards turn 1. Can we have a look to the inside? Well, with a couple of people. Whoa, locking up the rears there immediately, but we do get down the inside of Gasly and George Russell with a little bit of contact. A little bit ragged, but we've done all right there through the start. It's Verstappen trying to put a move on Lando Norris in his Ferrari car, as Russell now making away past Pierre Gasly as well then. So the Frenchman really struggling at the start of this GP. Just got to try and get some heat into the tyres there. Russell having a look to the inside. The problem is you have to run a more forward bias around this circuit because there's so many big braking zones that you don't want to lock the rears. Problem is with that is in the wet conditions, yeah, you just lock the fronts up instead, which is rather difficult to kind of adapt to early on here. But like I said in qualifying, I'm going to be really monitoring whether the intermediates stay too cold, whether they get too warm, or whether by some miracle they actually stay in a good operating window, because I'm so intrigued to see what is going to happen around here today. But up a couple of places then on lap 1, trying to avoid the wheel spin as best as we can. Carlos Sainz, he knows there's a golden opportunity today for him to chalk up a victory. Maybe George Russell and Mercedes opted for a slightly more wet-orientated setup, as that car looks to be pretty good in the straight line still at the moment. Here comes Gasly as well then. Is he going to try and make it 3 wide there? No room at the in. Down the inside, though, of our championship leaders. Oh, there's contact between the 2 Ferrari cars. Let's not forget they're both still with a shot of the World Championship, and they've just cost each other plenty of time. Okay then, so the team really don't think the rain's going to stick around for that long then here tonight. It's George Russell. I mean, he's trying to look for a move absolutely anywhere and everywhere that he can do at the moment. We are really struggling early on in this GP, as it's just the AI straight line speed, especially in the wet. They've just got so much grip off of corners. As you can see there, Russell blinking away again. Pierre Gasly must think I hate him at the moment, because we really can just keep trying to block him in, as here comes Oscar Piastri as well in the second Mercedes car down in towards the final couple of corners. So I'll bang in wheels with Pierre there, as George now will take the opportunity to try and run away. We will get back down the inside of Gasly, as Verstappen applying more and more pressure to Carlos Sainz up front. But I mean, those Ferraris, I think they are the quickest car here still already. I think that's Lando Norris making good ground on your top 2 again. But Leclerc is really struggling. They might be vice versa. But either way, one of them, yeah, is in the wars. Oh, I mean, there we go. Nothing we can do against Pierre Gasly. Just such a big run. While down towards those final couple of corners is Charles Leclerc, another new fast lap of the day. Oh, Pierre just braking a little bit earlier than I was expecting. So I'll have to go for a quick flick to the inside of him. And try and get the power down nice and tidy on the exit of the corner. But yeah, just got to be really careful early on. This race, you can so easily throw it away in the early stages, but we just need to make sure we're in that fight by the time the track dries up. As you can see, yeah, Oscar Piastri now losing a spot to Alex Albon as well in that Williams, so don't know whether he's got a little bit of damage early on, but either way, he is very much struggling. Well, I don't think we're going to be able to do much against Oscar Piastri once again then. Another Mercedes just flying by me like I'm stood still as we make our way down the back straight, and even Albon now is pretty much with us there. You can see once we get into the slipstream, we're not so bad. But the AIs will definitely get more straight line speed than the human player does as Verstappen. I mean, at 138, we can't be that far away from the crossover point in this Grand Prix. Still not seeing anybody pit yet. But yeah, we've only got to be a couple of laps out as it's going to be... see, we're barely improving on that lap. But we are going probably upwards of 2 seconds a lap slower than the AI. It is so painful. But let's just see if we can keep Alex Albon at bay. Well, there we go then. I guess we know the answer to the question, what happens when an unheatable object meets an uncoolable force? The uncoolable force wins. Because these tyres are still overheating here in Vegas.
Okay,
but
lost a position, that's us down a place.
Yeah, you can see Oscar Piastri now starting to pull away slightly as well. Alex Albon moving around a little bit there right towards the end of the braking zone. So I mean, we're almost down into the 136s. I reckon surely it's got to be time to call.
The tyre situation's an interesting one, but I think the right call is to stick with what we've got for now.
Well, I'm completely ignoring, Mark's orders, I should say. We're going to dive into the pit lane then and pray that I've made the right time to call as we start lap 10. We just cannot stay out on intermediates forever here, and I'd rather try and gain a little bit of an advantage, especially when the stakes aren't that high. Of course.
There seems to have been a problem attaching the left front wheel. We need to try and put that behind us though and finish this race strong. Look after these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound.
Every time I try and go for an undercut,
you might want to review our strategy.
Every time I try to go for an undercut on this game, I always end up with a slow pit stop. That being said though, grip out of those first couple of corners feels pretty good. Let's just wait and see what it's like on the brakes in towards turn 3. I think we nailed this. Genuinely, I think we've done alright there. So, hopefully, the car can live to fight on. It's definitely around this part of the lap where the car is still struggling to kind of find the grip it needs there, as we're still seeing new fastest laps coming in from our front runners. This feels a little bit like Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, where, yeah, you're getting quicker and quicker, but is the dry tyre actually the one you want to be on there as to the outside of Nico Hülkenberg? We're not last again in this Grand Prix. Happy with that. So we're going about 1.5 seconds a lap faster than these guys.
Good work. Great pass.
Problem is, it's Albon. That's the one I actually care about in this race. We need to be quicker than him. I mean, the AI, bizarrely, that's one of the corners where they're so OP in the dry, but in the wet, they just do not stand a chance then, as Bortoletto, luckily... Oh, I want to try and put him onto the wet line. We're going to end up on the wet line, though, through the corner. And you can just see neither of us have got any grip at the moment. As can we try and find an avenue down the inside? Yes, we can. Get it slowed down, get it rotated, and we're through. Well, there we are then, having a look at strategy, though. Most of our front runners into the pit lane, but Ferrari, they have kept both of their cars out at the moment. So a very, very bold call, and maybe a very Ferrari-esque call in this GP there, as we almost slapped the inside wall through the final couple of corners. Where is Alex Albon in this GP? There's basically everybody else now into the pit lane. I believe one of the Haas cars has stayed out there one more lap. There is Alex Albon in this race. So, well, basically those 2 seconds we lost by having the slow pit stop, That's basically what we've lost in this Grand Prix. Luckily, just like able to keep it out the wall and not take out Kimi Antonelli as we get going again. But yeah, the AI is still in a really, really good spot right now. Was around the outside of Liam Lawson. Come on, Albon now, 8 seconds up the road. That is going to be very difficult to come by the end of the afternoon. As Liam Lawson there, what a brave manoeuvre that attempt was around the outside. Luckily, we'll get the elbows out and hang on again. Well, I've just had a look on the mini-map then. There seems to be a bit of a weird glitch has gone on. Jack Crawford finally into the pit lane. But it looks like one of the McLarens is stuck in the pit lane there as Liam Lawson gets a run on me back down in towards the final corner. So, well, we've definitely gained a freebie because of that then. And that will explain how Lawson and I fighting for this final points-paying position right now. A little bit annoying, though, because it means Albon as well is probably going to gain a few extra points of this Grand Prix. We could desperately do with a safety car then, as that McLaren's finally got going again. They're going to be a lap down on everybody, though. So that has been a great, great shame. See there, Sainz and Norris both setting new fastest laps. But annoyingly for them, they're tripping over each other as Albon! Alex Albon late on in the day, he's got a mechanical failure. I clicked completely the wrong button. I don't know how I've managed that. But Alex Albon retiring from the Grand Prix late on in the day. That is devastating for him as the circuit just goes green by the time I get past. Oh, he's got a puncture. He's not even out of it. He's just got a puncture. And that could be a safety car late on in the day then, as he's still trying to keep going towards the end of the afternoon there. We got the jump on Liam Lawson as well, but what rotten luck for Alex Albon in this GP. 5 laps from home, on for another fantastic result for Williams. And he's not going to be able to walk away with any points from it in the end. I think Doohan must have gone into him as well, because Jack Doohan now was peeled into the pit lane here. So, huge drama coming in late on in the day here in Las Vegas. But we've got to try and close in on Kimi Antonelli, because 4 points for us would be very useful. Come on, this has got to be the chance. This has got to be the window we need against Kimi Antonelli. I'm not looking to try and go for a move this lap. I just want to know that we can bag that free bit of time, which we will do. Finally into the DRS of the young Italian here, who this might well be his best result for Haas all year. Don't know what Kimi Antonelli's best result has been, but where so many races have just been dominated by your big 4 teams, for him this is a golden opportunity, especially Haas. You know, they are looking quite strong towards the end of the year there, and you can just see again trying to catch me by surprise, draining some battery on the run back down towards turn 1 before we get into that next DRS detection.
21.8 seconds.
Less than 2 laps to go though here of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and at the front of the order Verstappen, it looks like he is just hanging on ahead of Lando Norris out of the DRS range. He must have about a 2-second gap now over one of his rivals there, as too busy looking at the minimap rather than where I needed to be going. Will cost us a little bit of time as well through those first few corners. Come on, just get back in the range of Antonelli. Really attack those curves as best as we can. Throwing the car around. We don't feel like we've got much rear tyre grip left, but we need to try and do this. Lando Norris, though, he needs to try and close in just a little bit more time on Max Verstappen here. This DRS zone is going to be critical for our race hopes today. Look at that, the car sat beautifully flat over the curbing that time, and luckily again we've got a little bit of battery to try and drain as we get towards the detection point. The gap is going to be just under a second again. That is absolutely critical, like I said. I'm trying to do the maths in my head. Lando Norris is going to gain 18 points here. Leclerc's going to claim 12. George Russell's going to claim 8. So I think the gap between all 3 of them down to about 30 points. So it is really coming down to the wire here. But Russell, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, making sure that he's picking up a few points so that Leclerc and Lando can't take too many out of him. 1 more lap to go, though, here from Las Vegas in what has been a very, very weird race this evening. Rain in the desert. One of those McLarens, like we saw, getting completely screwed over as well. Alex Albon getting a puncture late on in the afternoon has given us a huge chance in the championship, but as we try not to make the same mistake I did last lap, are we going to be able to get close enough for Kimi Antonelli to really do anything here in the dying stages? Oh, a big slide through into the chicane there. Give the people down at Sphere something to wave at. But through the final corner, Max Verstappen, it has not been his year, but he still just keeps denying others chances whenever he gets the opportunity. The Dutchman back on top here in Vegas. Lando Norris fastest lap on the very last lap of the Grand Prix. Can we try and get a run on Kimi Antonelli there? We've got way too much wheel spin as I tried to put the power down. We might not even be inside the DRS range this time, and we're not. We've just dropped out of it right at the very end. But I think, honestly, he deserves the result tonight. He's done very, very well once again in that Haas car to try and maximise the result. Russell will come home for P6. Again, a great day of damage limitation for him and Mercedes there. But every driver getting to the checkered flag, that's rather impressive as well in this Grand Prix. Through the final corner, it's going to be P9 in the end. A tough night but points on the board.
And in the end, there was no Verstappen. Max Verstappen, he takes victory.
Well, it all came good in the end for them, but it wasn't an easy start. Not the most straightforward of days, but I think it shows great strength in an athlete as a driver when you can overcome a day like this and walk away still with a victory.
It's time for our podium celebrations. And as ever in Formula One, 3 is the magic number. One of the all-time greats celebrates yet again. It's another podium, it's another top step for Max Verstappen.
Well, there we are then. A masterful drive by Max Verstappen. Controlled the pace from the front, and he thoroughly deserves the Grand Prix victory tonight. 2 seconds clear of Lando Norris by the checkered flag. Carlos Sainz in P3. Gutted for him. He deserves a win this year with McLaren, but just wasn't meant to be. Charles Leclerc in P4 ahead of Esteban Ocon. Russell ahead of Piastri with Antonelli, myself, and Liam Lawson rounding out your top 10 there. Franco Colapinto, a good drive from him to gain 6 places in that GP and up 3 places as well for Isaac Hadjar. Jack Crawford apparently retired on the very last lap. And of course Gasly, yeah, with that glitch. I'm not really sure why he carried on, to be completely honest. A very, very weird one for the Frenchman. But that means just then with 2 races to go and a sprint, the gap at the top now 28 points. Lando Norris now only 32 back. So it won't even be decided in the sprint race in Qatar. It will go down to, at the very least, the main event. But, you know, obviously, if Lando Norris wins it, we could end up in a scenario where if Norris won and Leclerc came second, I believe they would both, if then George Russell came third, I believe then they would both head to Abu Dhabi 25 points behind him, which would be a rather impressive feat by the end of the year. Or, sorry, no. Leclerc would be 25 back. Lando Norris would also be, 20. I feel like my brain is failing me. There's too many numbers going on right towards the end of the GP as well. But yeah, Russell, he's still out in front at the moment. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing, and hopefully he will walk away with the championship. We got a little bit lucky, but Tsunoda back ahead of Alex Albon in the championship with 2 races to go as well. Hopefully we can try and hang on to that. And yeah, for Kimi Antonelli, some big important points there this weekend. That does mean Haas now 4 points ahead of Alpine. Surely they're looking pretty safe in that spot as Aston Martin get another point on the board. Ferrari 57 ahead of Mercedes. They should wrap up that next weekend as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll be back very soon ready for the Qatar Grand Prix.